All right. So we are going to work on two problems tonight. This is session 9. This is the final session. It is Thursday, December 16th, 2021. We don't have a specific agenda tonight. There are no slides, anything like that. This is always just kind of a review session. The two problems that I have selected will take up a significant amount of time solving each one. I will go ahead and just kind of lead in a walkthrough, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions and ask for input as far as what we think we want to do next and how we would handle things. I'm guessing that the employee data one is probably going to take like 45 minutes to an hour for us to go through. And then the convert to minutes one shouldn't be quite as bad, but it should at least get us into the like 7:45-ish, 8 o'clock range, and then we'll see what we've got going on there. So before I get started on that, any questions anyone has for the evening? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at the employee data one first. And so this is, I'll do it on the markdown. You're a new programmer at your company. Your CFO needs some data regarding the employees, all the employees. Your CFO needs to know the number of employees per job title, the average salary for that job title within the company, the average bonus that job title receives within the company, and the average total compensation for that job title. You're given an array of objects that represent all of the employees in the company. You need to parse through all of the employee data and return an array of objects that represents each job title and the corresponding compensation data, including title, total employees, average salary, average bonus, and average total comp. All right, so everyone clear with the instructions? Okay, I'll take silence as a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so here is an example of the input data given, right? So we've got let employee data. So we've got our array built out here. And notice this is an array of nested objects, right? So our data is in the shape of this. Help if I assign it. There we go, everybody's happy. All right, so our employee data is structured just like this, right? So we've got a name, a title, a salary, a bonus, and each one of these is an object representing an employee and their information, and these objects are all nested inside of an array. All right, so if I wanted to get, let's say, Joan's name out of employee data, how would I do that? All right, so if I'm going to do console.log and I need to go into an array and then into an object and get a name out of here, how do we think we'd handle that?
In a for loop?
Well, I only need one person's name, so I don't need to iterate through here. I just want the syntax to get Joan's name out of here as a value.
Employee data dot name and the box notation for whoever's name you want.
Okay, so close, right? So employee data is an array, right? So arrays have index positions, objects do not have index positions. So if I want to get to Joan, right, that's 0, 1, and 2. So if I console.log just the employee data, right, I get the whole thing. And so 0, and so notice in here, these aren't coming out. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't scrolled on. So 0, 1, and 2, right? So now if I do employee.data box 2, right, now I just get Joan.
You would append name to that.
Yep, and then I'm going to append name down here. So name, and there's Joan, right? And same thing. If I want, so Joan is 2, so that would mean that Amber is 3. If I want Amber's salary, then I would come down here and I would do the third index position, and then I would add dot salary, right? And I can also continue to do box notation here as well, right? So 122,000. Where are you, Amber? Making 122,000 with a $16,500 bonus. I want Amber's job. Okay, so here's just kind of like a basic warm up of how we access different things, right? So to access something in the array, I need to the box notation inside the array. Right? Example would be right, and then to access something in the object, you can use box or dot notation. And I use the key to find the value. So you can just say example object dot example key equals example. All right. So, and because we're going to be dealing with both arrays and indices, arrays and objects, we're going to need to remember how to do both of these. This for right now, and comment that out. All right, so the next thing we need to think about here is I have an example of one of the objects. So let's just go ahead and throw this down here. And what I need for output is something that looks like this. So again, we still have the nested array, but the output isn't structured the same as the input. Right, and so my input has title, I'm sorry, name, title, salary, and bonus, right? Output needs do we need the name for the output?
No.
Okay, so we don't need it. Do we need the title?
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't need the salary per se, right? But we do need the average salary, and we don't need the bonus. We need the average bonus, right? So average salary, average bonus, total employees, and average, even though it says AVT, that should be average total comp. Right, so we can see that there's going to be a change in how we structure this, right? And there is a lot of massaging that we have to do. So if we start to think about how we want to tackle this, and I wrote some notes down here, pull those up.
First of all, what you need a unique list of the titles.
Yes, so so we do need a unique, like we're going to, because title is what this hinges on, right? So the output is going to be in the form of a title. So because we are grouping people by their title, and all the other things will change, right? So we can start talking about this here. This over a couple of lines at a time. All right, so we're going to need to iterate through the input array of objects, right? So we're going to have to go through this array, and this is the input array, and these are the objects. So we're going to have to go through each one of these. We can scrap the names. We don't need them. We can forget about them, but we're going to need to capture the title. And each time we hit the title, we're going to have to increment. So we're going to see if the title is in the current employee data object, already exists in our job title object, right? So at a certain point here, we're going to need to do a saying applicant all day long. So if the employee title does not exist yet, we need to build a data structure that holds all of the relevant. Okay, so basically we're going to iterate through here, and we're going to find the title, And we need to move this into a different data structure. And as we build it, we're going to say, hey, does the title developer exist inside this data structure? If it doesn't, which the very first time we run this, so Joe, the developer, does not exist in that data structure, we need to create an object or an array that will hold the title, the salary, and the bonus. And then the next time we iterate through, we're going to come in and see developer. We're going to check to see if it exists or not. And when it does exist, we're going to say, okay, this already exists. So let's increment the employee count from 1 to 2. And then we're going to add the salary to Joe's salary. And we're going to add the bonus to Joe's bonus so that we keep a cumulative total. And we're going to iterate through again. And we're going to see, okay, product manager, this does not exist. So let's push this into a whole new object or array, and let's start keeping track of employee count, salary, and bonus for the product manager, right? And developer, well, developer exists, so we go back and add these to Joe and Kelly's totals, right? We hit designer, it doesn't exist, so we create a new entry for designer and all of their relevant information. Product manager, this gets added back in with Joan, and then Chris, and this will then get added back in with Tom, right? So at the end of the day, we've got 3 developers, 2 product managers, and 2 designers. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, following.
Okay. And let's see here. Okay, and so once that is built out, so we'll have totals. Actually, I'm sorry. They're not there yet. Okay. Right. And so this is what we'd be looking at by the time we're done building that. So what we need to do next then is look at okay. So then we're going to do a little bit of math and massage the numbers. And then finally, All right. So does that all sound good? Okay, so these are basically going to be the steps that we're going to need to iterate through. All right. So let's go ahead and we've got that there. I'll push all this stuff down here. And let's do const. What is this thing called in Replit? Is get employee data. Of employees. All right, and remember, if I have more than one in a fat arrow function, see how I'm throwing an error message now? And same thing, if I have nothing, I'm going to throw an error message. So I need those parens, right? So if I've got more than one or less than one, I have to have them wrapped in parentheses. But if I just have one, it doesn't have to be wrapped in parentheses. So it's just a gotcha of the system. All right. So then I'm going to need to do my function call. This is employee data, right? Yep. So, and then if I go ahead out of here and return R of employees, right? So I know that I'm feeding through my nested array of objects here. All right. So first thing we talked about is that we want to build out a new data structure with it. So we know that we're going to need to iterate through this, but we're also going to need some stuff to hold on to this, right? So we're going to have right. That's going to be our final array. So our aggregated data. And this is going to be the employees that have been seen by our iteration here that we're going to build out. All right, and then I'm no longer going to return the array of employees. I'm going to do egg data. And when I do that, basically I'm just returning an empty array so far. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at doing a for of loop here. So let me just pull that up here, for of. Right, and a for of statement creates a loop iterating over iterable objects, including built-in string array like objects, arguments, node list, typed array, map set. So basically it'll work on an array, it'll work on all sorts of other things within JavaScript besides arrays, but we are going to use this to iterate through each nested employee object inside of our array of employees. All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to annotate this as I go through this. And then once we're done with this, I'll come back and I'll clean it all up. And so we'll have the big annotated thing with all the notes in here. And then I'll show you what it looks like without the notes. And maybe we'll have a little time to see if we can do any refactoring in here. All right, so we've got for, and it looks just like a for loop. And so it's a for of. right? And let's go ahead and console.log employee object, right? And notice how this is just, see, I'm not wrapped in the array anymore. I'm just console.logging each object out, okay? And so inside this loop, I know that I'm now getting my employee object. This is going to be each individual employee, right? And so let's go ahead and write our first case out, which is going to be if, so I'm going to do this backwards just for understanding purposes, but typically when I would write something like this, I would write the if statement, because you want to, when possible, you always want to try and write it in the positive. So we're going to say if this employee title already exists inside of the scene object here, then take this action. Else, take this action. So what I would, and I'm sorry if I feel like maybe I'm making this worse, but basically, when in doubt, if you write an if statement, you want to avoid something like this, right? Like you don't want to, because what is bang false equal to?
Not false.
True.
So true.
Right, not false, true. So bang false is equal to true, right? So I don't want to write basically if you don't see anything, take this action, right? And then the else would be I did see something, so I'll take this action, right? So don't is a negative. So basically the way I'm going to write it is if you do see something there, do this, right? And the first time we iterate through, right, like when we grab our first employee object, which is Joe, we're not going to see anything. So we're not going to hit the if case on the first one. We're always going to start in the else case. But just as general coding principle, and because there's nothing stopping you from doing the negative case, so like the bang false here, but if you send that up and like you're trying to push that into like production, like one of your senior developers is going to tell you basically reverse that, like you don't want to have the false case in the if statement, or the negative case in the if statement, right? So basically what we're going to write this is if employee object title is in scene, right? And so this is saying if you already see it in there, take this set of action, right? And so when we come down to our notes, if the employee title does exist, we need to increment the count of the employees, and we need to add the salary and the bonus to the cumulative totals for each, right? And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to increment, I don't know if that warning just popped. Did you guys see that warning on your screen?
Indeed, we did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just got the blinky red light on my keyboard here. I know where my stash of AA batteries is. Give me like 2 minutes and I'll be right back. So in fact, it's 6:40. Why don't we take just like a quick 3 or 4 minute break, and I'll see everyone back here at 6:45. Go get some batteries downstairs.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. Just when we were getting to the exciting part. Recording here. All right, so apologize for that. Batteries replaced, crisis averted. Had to make 2 trips because I thought they were double A's and they were definitely triple A's. All right, so also notice something a little bit new right here. So I'm doing employee object title in scene, right? So scene is an object. So if I come back over here to MDN, right, the in operator returns true if the specified property is in the specified object or the prototype chain, right? So we can look at const car, make, model, year, Honda Accord 1998, right? So is make in car, that's going to return a true, right? And so we have basically with that, we're going to use this to determine if the employee object title, so remember employee object is going to be like developer, designer, product manager, right? We're going to say, is that already in there? And if it is, great. If it's not, we're going to return false and we're going to do something else. All right, and let's see here. So let me do this. Right, and so we're going to do, if it's already in there, we're going to increment existing properties. Else we will add properties first time. All right, and so let's go ahead and close that. And so the first time through that we create an object, right? So if I come up here and I grab Joe, and let's put this down here for right now. Cram this all the way over here. So what do I need to take from Joe and add into my new object? Right.
The title.
Yep. So I need the title. And because we are going to be basing this on title, right? And we are going into an object, I am going to make the value of title here my key inside this object, right? So scene is going to look like this. Right, so that's my key. And then in here, I have a couple of different things that I need to store in here, right? So I need to get the salary and I need to get the bonus. And then I need to also start counting the number of employees, right? So these two I can grab from here. The last thing I need to do is grab my own. So because I've got all of these things and I want them to be associated with developer only, what I'm going to do is make my value an array, right? And so I can do title, or I'm sorry, not title, because the title is the key. So let's do this. Title is going to be the key. And then I'm going to need, let's see here. Let's go ahead and do, yeah, we'll do count first. So we'll do count, and then we'll do salary, and we'll do bonus, right? So my count I'm creating out of thin air, and then I'm grabbing salary and bonus. So what that would look like is right? And so now if I want to take this and I want to add these values to scene, how do I add a value to a key inside an object? Right. If I want to do it to an array, I need dot push, but with an object, I can just do assignment, right? So I can say something like scene employee object, right? So now I'm grabbing the employee object. So, and this is the employee object that I'm working with, right? And then title, right? So I'm grabbing title, and then I'm going to do, let's see here. I need it to then basically, this is now my key. And so now over here, I need my value, right? And so for my value, I'm basically going to pull in my count, which is 1, because this is the very first time we've ever seen it. And we're only going to end up over here if we haven't seen that title before. And then how would I get the value of the salary from an object? So in this, at this instance, this is basically, if that helps you think about it. So how do I get the salary out of here?
You would use the key.
Yep. So what would my syntax look like down here?
Employee object dot salary.
Yep, I could use dot salary. I can also use box notation. I'm just going to keep everything consistent. I'm going to do box notation throughout here. That way, because we're going to get to a point where we're going to need both box and dot notation, and it's just a little easier to do it all as box notation once things start to get crazy, which it will here in the next step. All right, so that's my second value in there. And then I also need bonus, right? Which I can do this basically the same way. And we're just going to need to grab bonus. All right, so let's go ahead and real quick here, let's just wrap this in console.log. Let me that one out and let's see what this looks like. All right. So now you can see there's my count, there's my index, and I did not I move this outside of here, that, and then that needs to go right here. And let's go to that. Okay, sorry about that. That was a typo. And I could see here that I was getting my bonus outside of my array. All right, so now everything's in the array here, right? And so this is doing this line. And then if I take this out of the console.log, right, and then we do console.log scene, just the object, right? So there's a developer, and it's going to look like a mess right now because we haven't written our if case yet, only our else case, right? So, but we can see here that here is a title is the key and all the pertinent information that I need as the in the array, right? So employee count, salary, and bonus. Okay, but what's happening is because like if employee object title is seen, like we're not doing anything in here, so this is why it kind of looks a little screwy right now. So let's go ahead and get rid of that console.log and come up into here. So I need to increment existing properties in here, right? So I don't need to create new ones, right, like this. But what I am going to need to do is basically get inside the object and then get inside of the array inside the object and manipulate these values. So and this one's will be a tough one, but does anyone want to take a stab at, let's see here, increment count will be the easiest one.
Shouldn't it just be what increment? I mean count plus plus.
You are correct, but how do I get to my, because like if I just do like count plus plus, like that won't do anything. Like how do I get to my count? Right, and I mean I can start us off here. So now because we are accessing a value that already exists, right? Like we need to get into an existing key value pair. What object is holding our key value pairs?
I guess scene. Yeah.
Okay, right. So if I start here, right, and let's go ahead and let's console.log this. So console.log scene, right? And I got rid of the other console.log I did. Okay, so now we should only be getting this after the, like we hit something that already exists, right? So we're coming in here, I'm adding in the developer, then I'm adding in a project manager, I'm adding in a designer. And basically we're only seeing those iterations because after we hit the first of each of them, we just skip over them. Like we don't do anything else. So I'm at scene, right? So how do I get into one of these, right? Like how do I access a key inside here? Like what's my next thing, right? I need to do box
Item.
notation, right? So I'm going to do, and my box notation is going to need to be this. And so this is where it gets a little bit messy, right? So if I do employee object and then title, right? And if I take this out, we'll just do it one step at a time here real quick. So if I do employee object, I get undefined, sorry. Let's do title, right? So now I'm inside of, this is the value, I'm giving it the key, right? The key for scene is going to be my employee object title, right? Which is developer. So it's saying, if you already see developer inside here, which it's already been pushed inside here once, so the second time, basically now do this, right? And so to access something, we need to go into the object of scene, and we need the key of the employee object title, which is the current position title. So developer in this instance, right? And so this is just a simple incrementing on this one. So I can do this, and we'll take it out of the console.log. And let's do, for now, we'll just return scene. Okay, so that didn't hit right. What did I type wrong? Scene employee data. Nope, sorry. So I am to the point where I'm at this entire array, right? So I skipped a step. I still need to go one layer deeper. How do I get the first element of this array?
Box 0.
Yep. So now, there we go. I've got 3 developers, 2 product managers, and 2 designers, right? So when we come in here, the first time, if this title doesn't exist, we start the count at 1. They're our first employee that has that title. Every other time we come in here with the same title that already exists inside the object, we're going to increment it by 1. Does that make sense? Okay, so next, let's go ahead and let's do cumulative salary, right? So same thing, scene, employee object, title, right? That's my key. So I'm all the way back to here. Where's my salary, right? Now it's this, right? So now I'm in the 1 index position. Now I can't just increment this by 1, right? Like I need to get the salary out of the employee object, right? So now I need employee object salary, right? So I'm adding in from my old object, my employee object as we iterate through, into my new data structure, which this is being added into the value inside of a object that is a array, right? So like I am basically scene is my object. This whole thing is scene. And then I am getting into the array. So the value for the key of developer, I'm going into the value, which is an array. And then I know that my salaries are stored in the number 1 index. So the second item in here. And then I'm going to add the salary in employee object to that, right? So now when I run this again, right? So now we can see that we have 3 for the employee, and we're doing the cumulative for the salary, right? And now for cumulative bonus, right? Scene, employee object, title, and we know that we're now in 2, so the 3rd index position, right? And then we're going to come back to our employee object, and we're going to grab bonus this time, so the key of bonus, right? And now when we iterate that, now I've got the cumulative bonus totals for all of these, right? So this is our completed, like we've completed building our holding object that has all the information that we need in it to take the next step, right? And so let me do this.
Well, guys, I'm totally shocked. Totally shocked. It was broken by the Federalist. Apparently,
All right, so this is basically what our code would look like so far without any of the notes in it. And I'm just going to comment this out for now. And so now we've basically completed through here. So we iterated through our array of objects. We grabbed all the stuff that we did need, right? So we took action if the employee the employee title didn't exist yet, and we took action if the employee title did exist, right? So once every employee has been accounted for, we should have a new data structure that holds the following for each job category: the title, so the total number of employees, total cumulative salary for each title, and the total cumulative bonus for each title. This we can step 3, right? Like I could add this in right now if I wanted to. We're just going to handle it in a later step. All right, so everyone's cool as far as what we're doing up to this point?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Okay. And again, like I said, I mean, this is probably now the 4th or 5th time I've solved this problem, and you can hear me like some of these parts I'm still stumbling on as I'm trying to verbalize the concepts, including, excuse me, like I said, a couple hours last night after class. Like I didn't go to bed till, like, I had to work out, and I didn't go to bed till like 12:30, almost 1 o'clock, because like I was like, I'm not going to bed until I solve this problem. So this is a tough one. Like there is a lot going on in here. Okay. All right. So let me just make sure. So this is my else statement, and this is my for loop. And this is why I'm doing this instead of Replit, is it gives me some nice things like auto formatting. And so like when I grab this, it actually tells me down here that this is the corresponding one. And actually, uninstalled this the other day because it was deprecated, because the VS Code is supposed to be doing it for me automatically, but apparently it's not. All right, so now I'm a big fan of this, the bracket colorizer. So it helps me keep track of where I'm at. So I don't get that where earlier I had my one item hanging out outside the array. The other nice thing it does is that if I delete something, like it will turn basically the next layer out red and draw my attention to kind of where the things are broken. All right, so purple here, or magenta, whatever that is, that corresponds with my for loop. I'm basically done with that first for loop now, right? And so now upcase that. So we're done with that part. So now my next thing that I have to do is iterate through scene, right? So now I have to go through scene and basically take that data and build out what I need out of it. And what I'm going to do is I basically ripped everything out of the employee objects and put them into a new object with a key value parent and array. And now I'm basically going to take each one of these lines out for developer, product manager, designer, and I'm going to move them into their final form, which is going to be pushing them as an object into aggregated data, so that at the end of the day, I will get something that has like, right, dev, design, right? And so, and then all of the relevant information for each of those positions in here, right? And so that looks like what we want out of our final thing here, so that we get basically title, product manager, total number of employees, average salary, average bonus, average total comp. So let's see here. So, and again, we did the for, or the for of, and we did an in, right, for to have this resolved to a true or false value. Now I'm actually going to iterate through scene, right? And so instead of a for of loop like we did for the array, for an object, we're going to need, right? So foreign statement iterates over all enumerable properties of an object are keyed by strings, ignoring the ones keyed by symbols, right? So const object, here is our object, const property and object, console log property, object property, right? And so we would get, so to get, this would be the key and the object. So the name box notation, the key gives me the value. All right. And so let's snag this. And let's do that. All right, so now I'm going to do for, let's do let key in scene. All right, and so now let's go ahead and do console.log key. And we'll get rid of returning scene here for just a second so we can see what this looks like, right? So there's developer, product manager, designer, right? And if I do scene box notation key, oops, what is that going to be? What did I work here? Const property in object, object property. I think maybe I don't have to do that. There we go. Okay. So this is how I'm going to get to my values, right? So okay. So I can then, let's go ahead and take this out of here, out of the console.log. And so what we need to do now is basically calculate the average salary. We need to calculate the average bonus and then the total comp, right? So this is going to be kind of like the calculation stage here for us. So let's do let average sal calc equal. So again, if I want, so I know that the scene key gives me this, right? So if I want my salary, I need to do scene key box 1, right? So same thing here. Let's go ahead and put this back in. All right, so now when I do this, I'm just getting those salary values. All right, so and to get the average, I need to get basically the total salary and divide it by the total number of employees, right? So let's try it up here first. and that's going to be the 0 index. Right, and so this is giving me a big long float. I can do it 2 fixed. If I just want whole numbers, right? Like, so when we look at the example of the data going out, there's no pennies or any rounding in there or anything like that. So what I can do here is basically take this entire thing and wrap it in parseInt, right? So parse integer, right? Prints the standard out with new line. Multiple arguments can be passed with the first use primary. Sorry, I'm reading that up there. So converts a string to an integer. And so basically that we don't need any of the optional stuff. We just need what we're giving it here. So let's go and do parseInt. And so now, right, now we get that nice round even number. So this is basically the calculation that I need for my average salary, right? So, and then, so let's do let average bonus calc, right? And that is going to be the third item in here. So the index position of 2 still divided by the total number of employees, right? So when we run that, we get those average bonus numbers. So, and then basically for let average total comp calc is just going to be the average sal calc plus the average bonus calc, right? So, and that's all we need for that part right there. So we can do right, and then those are the total numbers. All right, so now we've basically taken all of our calculations that we need, and we've gotten rid of the raw data, the totals that we had that were coming out of the first object that built, or the first loop that built our scene object, right? And so now what I need to do is I need to construct the object that is going to go out into the aggregated data array that we're going to return, right? So we can call this, sorry, lost my place. So let's say let title object equal this, right? And so we know now, and let me just grab this. Actually, I don't need to grab this right here. Just do this here. All right, so I'm going to need all of these. Right, and I'm just not going to do it hard-coded in. So how do I get the title? Right, I need my key, which is handily called key, right? So if I do this key, right, and then let's just comment these out for right now. And when I'm done constructing this object, basically I just need to take my aggregated data and push my object into it. All right, so if I now come in here and sure, change this back to returning aggregated data, and I run this. So now I've got my different objects here nested inside the array with the title, right? So now And again, key is developer, product manager, designer. Now I need to start getting into and accessing the things inside of scene, right? So I've got scene, key, and then I need box 0, I believe, is my employee count, right? So if I do that, so there's my total number of employees, right? Average salary, I calculated that. All right, let's go ahead and run it again. So there's my average salaries. All right, so now I've got enough in here where it's stretching it out. All right, so there's my average bonus. And then lastly, I need average total comp, which is, all right, and that's the solution. So who needs a beer after that?
I don't drink beer.
Sure.
Right. And so again, honestly, this one is really freaking hard. This one is like, it's the toughest one on the list. It's probably tougher than the bulk of questions you'll have on the application. Like this one is a barn burner. All right, so let me grab the last bit of this here.
And this was just one of the many questions on the pre-work, though.
No. This is actually on your challenge list.
Oh,
This is an employee objects, which is on the challenge list. But yeah, so that's this one right here, employee data. But this one is like miles ahead of difficulty than anything else on this list. And that's why we don't typically cover it until the last night of this.
I agree.
And I don't expect for you to have full mastery of this, because like I said, I mean, I've been doing this for a few years now, and it still took me a couple of hours to work through it, and like think of all the concepts that I needed to do. But this is like, it's exposure. So now that you've seen it, now you'll have this to draw on it. And this is really, and this is why I give you like the annotated version, is because now you can say, well, hey, I've got to burn through a nested array of objects in this other problem. Well, I know Charles gave me this, and okay, here's the link. Here it is in action, right? So maybe you can pull this out and start replacing things one at a time with the info from your new problem, and build something working from there. Like very rarely in and this is why, just like, I mean, you need to have an aptitude for this. You need to apply yourself. There are things you will need to memorize, but so much of what happens in day-to-day with development is that you've seen it once before, and you know where to like find the answer. Like for me, in my day-to-day with like this massive code base that I work in, if I run into something that I don't know off the top of my head, honestly, before like I go talk to anyone else about it, like, I mean, I'm going to do the normal, I'm going to try and Google it, I'm going to try and see what I'm formulating in my head, but I'm also going to comb through my code base and see where someone else is doing the same thing in a different part of the application. And then if I can start pulling out those wires and repurposing them for what I'm doing, all the better, right? And so the more code that you have in your library to draw from, the easier this stuff gets. All right, so let me grab this and come down here.
You could also do it another way. You could get a unique set of titles and go through a loop and loop through those, and then do an inner loop within the array to loop through all the objects. like for each title and your unique set of titles. You could use like I actually worked on this today, and you could use set. So I just like Googled how to create a unique set, and I came upon the set
Yeah. So
method.
yeah, I didn't do any like what they call set manipulation. Right. And so, which is a whole nother concept. So this is like when we start getting into mass, where we start talking about unions and intersections and sets.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this is always more than one way to do it. And I mean, this honestly, like, I mean, could be refactored out some, just depending on how you wanted to tackle it. But for
Right.
now, this is, so this would be the way that I would probably approach this one. I honestly, I've never really worked much with sets, or I have in Ruby and Python, but not in JavaScript. So it wouldn't be like the first thing that I reach for. Do you have a working solution you can share?
Yeah, I got it to work. How do I share it? Share my screen?
Yeah, here, I think I'd have to enable that. One sec. So let me stop my share. And then, okay, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Let's see. Sure. It says allows Zoom to share your screen. I guess that, okay. That. Oh, that's coming up. Shouldn't it just allow me to share the screen? Or should I select, let's see. I should select desktop, right?
Yeah.
Desktop share. It says allow Zoom to share your screen.
Yep.
Okay. And then it's asking me for security and privacy or something. I don't understand what
Are
it's
you
doing.
on a Mac or a PC?
A Mac.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've never shared in Zoom before, you'll have to go through the security settings there, enter your password, allow Zoom to be able to control your screen, and then leave the meeting and come back into it. The other thing you can do is, if you've got a link to it, if you drop
Oh, wait
the
a
link in
minute.
chat.
It's got Zoom here. I'll just try checking it and see if that works.
Okay.
Zoom.
Yeah, you'll have to restart Zoom after you check it.
Oh, I'll have to restart it. Okay. I don't want to quit it. Okay, it's asking if I want to quit. I guess I could just, can I share it in chat or what?
Yeah, just drop the link in chat and then I'll share it.
So just go to my REPL.
Yep. And then up at the top, like, just copy and paste the URL into chat.
Let me see if I can do it. Where is my REPL? It's on the side, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah, so you would need to.
I'm not real familiar with the REPL stuff yet. I mean,
yeah. So if you click on your name or whatever, so you're back out on the homepage, like how my screen is right now.
I see
and
it.
then up in the, yeah.
And then REPLs, pick a REPL.
Yeah, you just, if you see the link to it, you grab it. If you don't, in the search bar, you can just type in employee data and it'll pull in your fork.
So it says add a showcase REPL. Do I just highlight that and copy
Nope.
it?
Nope.
No.
You again, just head into, like, get onto the main page. In the search bar, just type in employee data. And from the search bar, click on it and it'll pull up the REPL, and then just grab the URL out of the search bar on the browser and then copy and paste that into chat.
Okay, I think I got it. And just put it in chat. Okay.
Yep.
Where's the chat?
So on the toolbar for Zoom, it'll either say chat, or if you don't see chat, under more, click on
Okay.
more, and then chat will be there.
Okay. Let's see if this works.
All right, there we go.
Is that it?
Yep.
Does it look right?
Okay, so here we go. So this is your copy of it here.
Right.
I'm going to fork your replit and pull it over to me so I can get the side-by-side in here. All right, so you've got all of this. So this looks all to be correct. And then, so let's see here. So you came in and basically created a kind of like a final array here, right? Like I'm taking it, that's what's returned out of the end. And then instead of creating a object, you created the set, right, for titles. So new set. And then let's see here, R of employees for each employee. So you're going through the array and then you're doing titles.add employee title. So you're basically pushing them into the set. And then sorted titles, so array from titles.sort.
It just sorted it. I mean, it wasn't necessary, but.
Okay, and now you're doing the new set, and you're doing the basically the reassignment here. Did you need, so you have the titles up here, so you're just assigning it in place over the top of it.
Yeah.
Right, and then you've got your of, so your for of loop here. Okay, and then setting your values, like the initial values. And then, so if, here's your incrementing, and then so for each employee, our employees, if employee.title is equal to I, where is I coming from? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's in the loop. That's basically title.
Yeah, so what I would say, and like this is all very good, I would, unless you're actually in a for loop, I would avoid I, because of like exactly what I just said. Like I got here and I had no idea what I was anymore. Right. So correct execution, but like pick like a more descriptive variable name. So right, like it would be, this is in title, so it'd be like const title of titles, right? And then if employee.title is equal to title, and that would be a lot easier to read.
Right.
And okay, and so then basically we're incrementing the total number of employees, and we're doing a cumulative add to the salary and the bonus per employee type. And we come down here and do the average salary, average bonus, average total compensation. And then we're basically pushing our new object. And again, same thing here, like I in the title. And we're pushing it in and then we return it. Yep. So this is, I've never seen it done with set before. So that's cool. If it's okay with you, can I keep this?
Sure.
All right. So yeah, and this will, if I teach this class again, like I can basically show it that way and then also show it as this way.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And nice job on that. Okay, so it is 7:36 and I am basically pretty much done with the employee data one. And Dizzy, I saw in the chat, yes, all of this will get copy and pasted into a replit and shared with the class. And if it's okay with you, Don, I'll share yours as well.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and change that I to title or something.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably do that and then push it up with the other stuff. And then, so there's this. So we're done with that for now. And so it's 7:38. Done a lot of talking. Give me like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just gonna go fill up my glass of water here real quick. So let's say we'll get back at it here at 7:40, and then we'll cover this last problem, which is one of the, I think it's like week 3 of the pre-works problems. Okay, so this will be our last challenge that we do as a class. Let's do. Yes. Okay, so getting hit with that. All right, so this last one here is, and this one I'm just going to kind of roll through here. This isn't in the challenge list for this class. I just came across this one from the pre-work and thought it was a really cool one. I had a lot of fun solving this one. So we have the function counting minutes, which takes in a string, basically the parameter being passed, which will be 2 times, each properly formatted with a colon and an AM or PM separated by a hyphen, and return the total number of minutes between the 2 times. The time will be in a 12-hour clock format. For example, if the string is 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., then the output should be 60 minutes, right? 60 minutes has gone past. However, if the string is 1 p.m. and 11 a.m., we're always assuming forward time, so the output should be 1320, which is, I believe, 22 hours, right? So that's 20 times 60 is 1200, and then the 2 times 60 is 120, so we get 1320 there. All right. So, and that's my note, but basically, kind of when I looked at this one, the first step that I was thinking that I wanted to do here was convert this into military time, right? So I need to convert this to 0001 and 0000, right? And so like this one would need to be 1930 and 0830. You know, we don't need, the leading zeros won't matter in this, right? Because trying to keep this on a 12-hour clock and then having to keep track of AM and PM and the conversions back and forth, and it just makes it too difficult. So like the first thing I would do to simplify this, I guess I'll put this in here. And actually, I before I get a hold of myself, so first thought is to convert this right? So, because with the AM and the PM, we basically have 12 duplicate values. On the 24-hour clock, we have 24 individual values. Right, so I need to isolate the time from each other. Then I need to isolate the numerical time from the AM and PM. Right, so that's the first thing that I want to accomplish with this. Right, so let's go ahead. I'm just going to, oops, sure here. Okay, I'm still recording correctly. Let's go ahead and comment these out and comment this one out too. And let's do this, and let's do like an easy one just to start with. So let's do (9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Just 1 hour's worth of time that I need to account for. All right, so let's do const counting. Right, and then string, oops. String. Right, and then I'm going to console.log my string just to make sure that I get what I think I'm supposed to. All right, and there's by 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, so what is the first thing I can do to separate these two things, right? Like that's my step one, right? I need to isolate the times from each other. How do I do that?
Two separate variables.
I can do that as two separate variables, but I can also, and what if I want to have one variable that can hold two unique values? Is there anything that I would have at my disposal for that?
An array.
Okay, yep, an array. So let's do let time array equal an empty array for right now. So how do I move or how do I move parts of a string into an array?
Splice.
Splice will grab a chunk of it, but if I have two things and there's one thing that separates between them.
Well, split.
Yep, there you go. So I could split, right? So I could say string.split, and I could split on the hyphen is my separator. And so now if I console.log time array, check that out, right? So that's what I'm looking for, right? And so the next thing that I could do here is I basically want to be able to get rid of the letters here. So now within, let's see here. So now what I'm looking to do is actually take one of these times and so like basically one of these at a time and convert this into what I need, which is the 24 hours, right? So I need to grab this one time and I need to isolate my AM, or get rid of my AM completely. I don't need it anymore. And I need to hold on to my 9, and I need to hold on my zeros for minutes. Right. And so what I would look at doing is, let's see here. So I can take, let's say that let single time equal time array 0, right? So now if I do this, right, now I'm just down to my one time, right? And I've got it here as a string, right? So now how can I get rid of how can I split my hours and my minutes? Right, I can split on my colon, right?
Colon. Yeah.
So now I could do a split again. Right, and so now I've got my 9 and my 00 AM, right? And now to get my minutes from this, I could basically write a split on like on either A or on P, but then I'm still left over with it. But kind of the same trick that I did on the last one is I can take this and basically run it through parse int, right? So if I do, just do this as an example here real quick. Right, so if I do console.log and I have a string of 15 Charles, right? And I console.log this, I've got 15 Charles. Now, if I take this string and I do parse int, what it's doing is literally it's parsing, which means it's traveling through this information, it's searching through it, and it's only going to pull out the integers, right? So now anything that could be converted into an integer in here is now an integer. Everything else is discarded, right? So, and I think it stops after the first one. So, and it doesn't have to be first. So I believe even if I stick it in the middle here, and I could be wrong, but we'll try this real quick. Okay, no, so I guess it does have to be the leading numbers with this. All right, so let's go ahead and take this, and we can do with the single time, the time array is 0, and then we can do right, and we can split on this, and then let's go ahead and right, so I've got this, and so if I take right, and I can hard code these values because I know that my time formatting is going to come in the same way every time. Oops, hours. Right, so there's my 9, and if I do minutes, right? There's my 00 AM. So now I can, and the same thing, this is still a string right here. So what do I get when I do this? What's going to be my return value?
18.
Sure. What do I do if I do this?
Oh yeah, so it will be 99.
Yep. Right. And for right now, there's my 99, right? And right now, these are both strings still, right? So we can do parse int. Parse int. And then, so now, see how everything's in white down here? I still have the AM on there. So now if I do minutes, I should just get a single 0. And notice it's yellow. That means that it's a number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 9:15 and 10:15. Right. And so there I've got some numbers in it, right? And same thing for hours. Right. So there's my 9 as an integer. So I don't like how messy this is, and the fact that, I mean, this is, all of this is just for one thing here. So, and I still need to take care of time array 1. Like this is just the first time, the 9:15 AM. I still haven't taken care of the 10:15 AM. So what I would probably do here is do a, so I've got my time array, which is unformatted. So if I say let formatted time array equal time array dot map, right? And so again, when we come in here, we've got mdn dot map. Oops, that'll still get me there. And mdn dot for each. Right, so when we do a map, the map method creates a new array populated with the results of calling a provided function on every element in the calling array, right? And for each method, executes a provided function once for each element in the array. And so what I want is that new array with my results in it. All right, so I can do dot map, and then we'll do time. And what will happen here is now I'm going to write a method, right? So this is going to become a higher order function, right? Dot map is a function. I've got a callback in here, and I'm going to feed my callback into another method that I'm going to write down below here. So I can say, let's say const format time, and we're going to do this as a single time string, and we'll go ahead and write that. And so now what I'm going to do is, instead of having all of this, and this only takes care of one of them, I'm going to move all of this down in order into this method, and then I'm going to map through both of my times and call this method that manipulates the data into, or basically on both of them, and then build a new array of formatted time that gives me my new time amounts in it, instead of the basically like the old 12-hour with the colons and hyphens and unusable characters in it. Right. And so basically we'll call this a, just like we did up here with a time array, I now have a single time array, right? So like I only have one time instead of both the times in there, right? And so now instead of having to have this time array 0, I can get rid of this. And I can say that this is going to be equal to the single time string dot split on my colon, right? And so let's go ahead and oops, get rid of that. And so now I'm going to do format time, right? And remember, as I iterate through, just like kind of like how we had the I and the other one, what I wanted, like I could put I here, but I want to give it something descriptive. And inside my time array, each element inside my time array is a time, right? And so I'm going to feed that into here. All right, and so we'll save that and clean that up. So, and let's go ahead out of here. I'm going to put my return statement in here, and everything below my return is going to become unreachable. See how it gets grayed out. And I'm going to return my formatted time array, right? And then, so let's go ahead right now and return single time array out of here. And let's see what this looks like. All right, so now I've got my first time has been broken into 9 and then 15 a.m. and then 10 and 15 a.m. So I've got nested arrays right now. All right, so I've split on that, right? And so now what I need to do is get my hours and my minutes, right? So let's go ahead and do let hour equal %, right? And then single time array 0. And we're going to take the minutes, call that hours. We're going to do the same thing. So %, single time array 1. All right. And so I've taken care of this step, and this step. Right? And this was just a console.log. Go ahead and clean that up. All right, so now I have a 24-hour clock that I'm working with, right? And here is where it gets a little bit tricky, right? So if I have 7 a.m., that is going to be equal to 0700, right? What is 12 a.m. equal to?
2400.
0.
Yeah, I would go with
Yeah.
all zeros, right? And so it goes from 2359 to 4 zeros, right? And the same thing, 12 p.m. is equal to 1200, right? And then 7 p.m. is equal to 1900, which is when we get rid of all of these, right? So we need to be able to add 12 to an existing time. So 1 p.m. is equal to 1300, right? And but where the combo breaker is 12 p.m. and 12 a.m., right? Because I don't want to add 12 to 12 a.m. because if not, I'll get 1200, and 12 p.m. I'll get 2400, right? So what I need to do is be able to basically modify in place my 12s. And how I would do that, and I don't care if it's AM or PM, what I'm going to do is zero them out, right? And so if I now say, if hours is triple equal to 12, hours is equal to 0, right? Because if I always zero it out, now if it is, now I can say AM times just return me the time that it actually is. So if it's 12 a.m., I'm just going to have a 0 there. And if it's 12 p.m., I'm going to bring it down to 0. And then later on, I can add my 12 back in, just like I would for 1 p.m. becoming 1300, 12 plus 1. 7 p.m. is going to become 7 plus 12 to get me to 19, right? And so now I've equalized those two little weird edge cases, and I can treat them just like I would the other 11 hour indicators. So like basically 1 through 11 on the rest of the clock. Does that make sense what I'm doing there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now what I can do is, now that I've normalized that, now I can figure out how to deal with my AM times and my PM times, right? And if I have an AM time, I can just leave it alone, right? I just have my 7 hours. I need to get the total number of minutes, so it's going to be 7 times 60. I don't need to add or subtract from that 7 at all. So my next thing is, so if basically up here, so my single time array, right? So when I look at my single time array, that second part still has an AM in it, and I'm cutting it out when I have minutes, right? So if I do console.log minutes here, oops. Whoops. Right? I'm getting a number, but notice I haven't changed in place. And this is Terrence, we kind of talked about this the other night with the shallow copies, right? Like I'm making a copy of that value and I'm saving it to here, but I'm not actually impacting the initial value up here. So I still have that AM and that PM, right? So if, let's just say that, let's make this even better. Let's do 11 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. Right, and so now there. So I've still got, because I didn't change that to PM, I changed it to AM. Right, so there's my PM. So now I can say if single time, and I don't want to do minutes because remember minutes is just the 15, but for the single time array, right? And so let me just do this here real quick. So let's do single time array, right? And let's console.log it, right? So there's my single time array. And now, and again, we're seeing both times because it's mapping through them. But if I'm just grabbing one of them, right? So, and I need from my second position, right? So 1, right? So 15 a.m., 15 p.m., right? And so I can say down here, if single time array 1, and I'm going to be looking for if there's a value in there, right? So like a string. So, and right now, this is still in string format, because remember, I'm changing hours and minutes to integers, but this is still an array of strings up here. So let's do this. JS find value, come on, find value in string. Find if right, so Java, and see how I didn't search the right way, so what I was looking for didn't pop up in there. And so that's the other thing, is like when you search and you don't find it, you can always try to rethink exactly what you're thinking or what you're thinking about. So dot includes, right? So sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, word fox. Sentence dot includes word, right? And they do some, they put it in a ternary, but that basically means that this is going to resolve to a true or false value, right? And so that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I can say single time array 1, so that's what I'm using to get my minutes, so that 15 a.m., 15 p.m. dot includes p.m., right? And so now I can say that my hours plus equals 12, right? Because now if I've got 1:15 p.m., right, I'm going to add that 12 to the hours, and then I'm going to end up with 13:15. All right. So now what we can do is basically, instead of returning the array, I'm now good to start doing some math, right? So now I can take my hours and times it by 60, right? And then I can add my minutes, right? And these are all integers, right? So now I've got a minute count of 675 and 795, right? So does that make sense what I've done here so far? And notice how I've basically, I'm keeping, and so I'm keeping single responsibility here, and I'm keeping my code organized by saying that this method does one thing, right? Like I can plug all of this up here and I can push this, like I can get rid of format time and I can copy all of this stuff back up into here, right? And then like with employee data, this is, even when it's cleaned up, like this is a very large method. And probably what I would do is I would have one function that is get employee data, and it calls a method that builds our scene object, and then it takes that scene object and returns it, and then I take the scene object and deconstruct it into the aggregated data in a different method, so that I would have 3 different methods that work in this. And it helps you keep your code organized, and it makes it a little bit easier to read. All right, so at this point now, I'm returning an array with 675 and 795, right? So I could basically say for something like that, I could return formatted array 1 minus formatted array 0, right? And so there's 120. So there's 2 hours between 11:15 a.m. and 11:15 p.m., right? And that is a correct answer right there. So where we run into issues is, so on this next one, right? And so 12:01 a.m. to 12 a.m., that means it's basically 24 hours minus a minute, right? And I get -1. And that is not a correct answer. So what I end up doing is I need to figure out something that will account for basically which way my time is going, right? Because it's not always just going to be the first value minus the second value, because we'll end up with negative numbers, and that isn't a correct answer. And so how can we work that -1 into a correct answer? So does anyone have an idea what we could add -1 to get a correct answer?
add it to 2400?
Well, for 24 hours, which is, I think, like 1,440 minutes, right? So if we, right, so if we take 24 hours times 60 minutes, that's 1,440, right? And if we add -1 to it, right, so basically subtracting 1 from it, we're at 1,439. And that is a correct answer. So what we need to do then is basically do something that will make a decision for us. And we could write that in here as well, right? And like we can clog this up. But more likely what we'd end up doing is write another method that is going to be that will return out of, so that we can keep our code cleanly formatted here. So we could say right, and then we could feed in formatted time array, right? So we've got another, so we're taking a variable here and we're feeding it into another function. So again, we're returning a function out of our main function. So this now becomes a higher order function as well. So remember, a higher order function is a function that takes a function in as a variable, like it does here. So .map is a higher order function. It's taking in format time. And then we also have a high order function if we return a function. So we're now going to return a function here, right? And so I can do the same thing here and say const determine direction, and we'll call this we'll just keep the name the same here. So formatted time array. Oops. Fat arrow, right? And so now that we have the formatted time array, we basically just need to determine which one of these is the bigger number, right? So with something like this, we have this resolves into 675 and 795, right? And in this one, we're going to have 1 and 0, right? So with this one, we can just go ahead and subtract it. But with this one, we have a little bit more math to do, right? Which is going to be take 1440 and then subtract it's going to be the difference between 1 and 0 at this point, right? And so let's see here. So what we'll do here in determine direction is, because we've got that formatted time array, right? So let's go ahead and just return formatted time array, and get rid of it. Well, hang on to that for just a second. That right there. Get rid of this. Right, and let's see what we've got. All right, so we've got 675 and 795. Right, so we know that if the value, in the 1 position, in the index of 1, is larger than the one in the index of 0, that we can then just go ahead and do straight subtraction. Right, so basically we can we'll stop returning the formatted time array, and we'll return this. right? However, if formatted time array 1 is less than formatted time array 0, then we need to return 1440 minus the formatted time array 0 minus formatted time array 1. All right, and so now when we do this, right, we've got 120 minutes and we've got 1439. Right, so let's go ahead. All right, so we know that this one is going to be equal to 120. This one is equal to 1439. So from 1:23 a.m. to 1:08 a.m., right, that is a full 24 hours less 15 minutes, right? So 1440 minus 15. So I would expect that this would be 1425. Right, there's our 1425. Right, 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. So that should be 1380. All right, there's our 1380. So 7:30 p.m. to 11:30 a.m. is going to be 13 hours. So what is that? 770 plus an extra 60, so 830, if I'm doing my math correctly, which I'm not. It would be 670 plus an extra 60, so it would be 730. Or 780. I was going to get there eventually. All right, and then from 1 p.m. to 11 a.m., again, that would be 22 hours. All right, so we get the 1320. That's 1440 less 120. All right, so any questions about how I did this and kind of the thought process? And again, like keeping everything organized and keeping, and so this is even beyond what you would deal with in Code Platoon, right? And this is called the solid principles. And these are like kind of like the core design, I'd say, tenets or patterns that we follow when we're trying to make good object-oriented software. And the first one, the single responsibility principle, is there should never be more than one reason for a class to change. In other words, every class should have only one responsibility. And that is fractally down, like a class is bigger than a method. Like this whole thing would probably be considered a class, but then there would be methods in it. But notice how I have one method that formats my time. I have another method that will basically determine which direction to go. And that's because, let's say we adopt the crazy 17th century French idea of having like the, what was it, like the 10 hours in a day or something like that, and 100 minutes in each 10-hour period, and then 100 seconds in each minute. Like they had done the math so that they could basically make time metric. Instead of having to come in and look through this whole method, basically I kind of know that I'm going to come into this part where I'm going to format my time. Right. And so it makes it easier. And again, especially like when I showed you like some production code where there was just like an absolute ton of code there, that it makes it easier to search for exactly what you're looking for. All right. So I am going to turn off the recording at this point.